Guys, this morning we jump full speed ahead into our discussions, and we are still speaking about the fact that there is no Independence Day parade this year. And who better to speak about that with this morning than former Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith. Good morning and welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Well, this is something that is a bit new for Trinidad and Tobago, in that we are seeing this current government making a very tough decision to postpone or to cancel the regular Independence Day parade due to issues of security concern and wanting to use those finances, as they put it, for greater security investment. Again, welcome, and how are you feeling about these sentiments this morning?
Hi, well, good morning again. Uh, as any patriot, any citizen, any person who was in the military, we would understand the significance and the importance of independence. To hear comments from certain persons that we are wasting money, it's just for fire trucks and army trucks to parade, it shows ignorance in not in understanding the importance and significance of celebrating and respecting a period of an anniversary every year for the last 60 plus years, 63 years, of the fact that we are now free to self-govern. We have now become mature as a country without having to be controlled and dictated by external forces. Many countries in the world do not have that opportunity. So instead of us, we should understand how important that is. But again, my support on the shutting down of the independence celebration is specifically and solely based on the statements made as it pertains to it being a clear and present danger, and based on intelligence agencies stating that they do not think they have the capability to secure the environment on that day. That is, and if that is the case, then nothing trumps national security. Having said that, if I was the commissioner of police, the things that I'm seeing this commissioner of police doing, and this is not to discredit him, it's just different style, different personalities. There's no way that I will back down to criminal elements unless I know for sure that I cannot handle it. He became commissioner of police. There was a situation with the prisons and with prisoners having access to sending messages out to put hits. His first way of trying to solve the problem was to make a recommendation for a state of emergency. I had the exact situation, and I was able to put a comprehensive operational plan that locked down these 13 individuals that for 3 or 4 months nothing could get into their cells and pass through them without having to have a proclamation by the president. When you have a state of emergency, it affects the country. But he made the recommendation and the government had to adhere to it. Now he probably would be the front person to recommend that we don't think that we can secure the country. That could have never happened to me as commissioner of police, because if it is that you have 10,000 plus persons on Independence Day armed to the teeth, what it is, you're trying to tell me you have 10,001 criminals out there that can take you on mano a mano? That's impossible. I will never back down and cover and be able to surrender to criminals. That is basically what it can be perceived as. So he seems to be very conservative. He sees something, call a state of emergency, tell the prime minister to shut down Carnival. I'm sorry, Independence Parade, and that is his right. But and if he does that, the government must adhere to it, because now don't say that it must. But if they don't and something happens, there's going to be a price to pay, because you have to take the advice from the experts. The experts have stated that they don't think they have the capability. It could very well be that they believe that they have intelligence that there might be plans to do things outside of the Queen's Park Savannah and where Tobago have their celebrations. That because of that, of all the focus of law enforcement agencies and personnel being neutralized, being centered in one area, it can cause that to happen. Or it could be that whether it's a sniper fire, an improvised explosive device, whatever it is, um, it must not in any way be seen that the government has made this decision. This decision was made solely on um, the the intelligence agencies doing that. And if that is the case, unfortunately, we have to adhere to it. There's
Right. And
one quick point. Yeah, sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, there's one quick point there. However, and that's where there's a window that's causing many people to believe it's because the government just don't care about national, they don't care about the independence parade. They don't see it as being significant. They see it as being a P&M thing. And because of that, it has caused many persons to believe that this is not about national security. And what has intensified this belief is the fact that we have ministers in the government openly making statements like that. And it does not help the government, because if the government says, look, this is based specifically on national security, a national security concern, fine. But you have David Naked coming out now and openly stating, well, that's a PNM thing, and for 10 years the PNM did it. How ignorant can you be? The PNM, the UNC had the similar parade from 2010 to 2015. Basio Pandey ran the parade from 1995 to 2001. You as a government minister come on live and you make a video and say this was a PNM thing and that's why PNM people like that, and this is UNC government now. That is totally incorrect. And if it is that you do that and you make comments like that, then it is going to cause people to believe, it's going to cause people to believe that that this is done specifically on the fact that it is based on it is not seen by the UNC as something important, and that is where I am very concerned. And then you have Philip Alexander, who speaks on everything other than his ministry. Philip Alexander, every single dog that passes, he has been speaking about. He has been speaking. He goes on television this morning and is saying, well, we have to look and maybe start changing the concept of Independence Parade, because Independence Parade, with all these trucks and all that, maybe we could change it. And that is quite possible. But by you coming at this time to speak about, well, maybe it is the whole concept of the parade is the wrong thing. Why are you saying that now? So Philip Alexander and David Naked have done nothing other than to make it very difficult for the government in trying to get people to believe that this is done solely on an intelligence report by the law enforcement agencies.
Right, and let's talk a bit about the situation surrounding this level of national security concerns. We saw an article coming out yesterday and within the last few days regarding, some of the key persons who are at the center of the accusations surrounding these national security concerns, with 3 ministers and 1 public official being a target. For a long time, the issue of campaign financing and the putting proper protocol, proper, policies in place for how campaign financing is received, and, having a certain level of transparency there has been a topic, but nothing has truly come out of that. And we're seeing a situation where, because that has gone unchecked for so long, we are now hearing allegations that this national security threat is based on campaign finances to the tune of, I believe, $20 million that, investors are now coming back for the return on their investment through the URP and CPEP programs. Talk to us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, thankfully, I have fought this battle against 1, 2, 3, 4 governments as National Security Advisor, as a member of the Congress of the People, when the PNM started referring to these criminals as community leaders, as Commissioner of Police, and that is where then Prime Minister Rowley and I had the war. It had to do with firearms and all of that. It had to do with him sitting on a front page stating that the gangs have a right to apply for contracts to their people. Well, that's questionable in my mind. I don't refer to them as that. So government after government have continued to play in this game, feeling that but they forget that when you play with filthy animals, you will get fleas. Patrick Manning did it, brought them to a hotel, referred to them as community leaders, and gave them massive state contracts. Then when I was the Minister of National Security, I was the one who stood up against my own government with live sport. Thankfully, the then Prime Minister, who's the present Prime Minister, agreed with me. Whereas all the rest of them banged the table, long live live sport. And I was seeing the data, 400 million, the majority of which was used to siphon funds for criminal elements. It was indirectly involving over 40 people losing their lives. And we had government ministers trying to condone and support it, saying, well, you have to understand how this thing works, Gary. I said, no, you don't. And the Prime Minister thankfully accepted. I did all the research on myself, more than the police. All the information the police got, it came from me. And the Prime Minister transferred it to the Ministry of National Security. It was too much, and then we shut it down. When I was Commissioner of Police, I showed Prime Minister Rowley CPEP, URP. It as an avenue where your persons were getting a $500,000 contract to build a $50,000 box drain. The $450,000 profit wasn't going to the communities or to the small man. They were taking it, siphoning funds, using it to import illegal weapons, human trafficking, hiring more gang members, using it to purchase drugs, putting hits on other gang members to get their state contracts. and then hiring police officers who are rogue officers to protect them, protect their turf, protect their drug block, transport, using vehicles. These same police officers turned on me and they tried to rally themselves with the same PNM to have me removed. My removal had a lot to do with the same situation, and it showed the input of how the gangs had infiltrated into the PNM, and I spoke about it. Thankfully, this prime minister has stood firm. I am pleasantly surprised. He's the first prime minister ever, I think, that has stood firm and said, we are not going to negotiate with criminals. We are not going to give them. So Kamala is saying we are not going to give the gang state contracts. Keith Rowley is stating, but Gary, there's people too. They're entitled to apply. It shows the difference. And by her doing that, she has raised a red flag to call out open war. It is the line in the sand has been drawn. And I said it. When this happens, the murder rate might very well intensify, because think of it that you have two potongs and you're giving each potong a big plate of food, and then all of a sudden you remove the food and you have a little scrap. They're going to fight over each other for what little there is. It is going to happen, but my concept is we need to bleed to heal. And what she's doing is the right thing, and they would retaliate. Their retaliation, I had it as commissioners of police. There were 43 death threats on me and my family. Special Branch said it was the most high profile person to be assassinated because of my stance against criminals having state contracts. What the Prime Minister is doing, you're going to get the same thing. And with that, you're going to get threats and so forth. And it will include making wild threats. And sometimes they say we're going to destroy Independence Parade. If you have a commissioner that's going to say, oh gosh, you see that's sounding true, let's cancel it. Or call it SOE. We can't be just, every time somebody cries wolf, we're going to immediately press the panic button and shut everything down. But as I said, the government was left with no choice if the law intelligence agencies made that decision.
Right. Let's talk about the fact that these persons are being named and identify the persons who are, posing these threats, but yet no one has been arrested. Talk to us, as former commissioner of police. Why is that?
Well, you see, there's something called lies, darn lies, and intelligence, and therein lies the problem. Intelligence. That's why when the previous prime minister, she said, well, same thing. He said, well, if you know that they broke the law, you could arrest them and charge them, but in the meantime, allow them to have contracts. And I said, no. In the United States, there are several hundred persons that are on a terrorist watch list. They have never been arrested or charged, but the US is not going to give them a contract to paint the White House. It's called common sense. So if it is that you have intelligence of these individuals involved in criminal activity, but we don't have that threshold of evidence to have them charged, we're not going to give them a product of opportunity for them to have profit, to have more sophisticated artillery than the police service. And therein lies the problem. So you can't charge them because, again, going back to the anti-gang legislation, in 2006, when I was in the COP, I was the first person who made the recommendation to have these laws if somebody's a gang member. Because I went to New York City, I worked with Mayor Rudy Giuliani, 3 commissioners of police, Bill Bratton, Bernard Kerrick, and others, Kelly and so forth, and they showed me how it is done. But in the United States, to arrest persons for gang activity, it is the easiest thing to do, whether it is people have a similar tattoo, whether they're in a specific place, whether they have a specific jersey, a specific hairstyle, they go in a certain bar. That it's as easy as that. We drafted this anti-gang legislation. It is impossible to arrest somebody for gang activity, virtually impossible. The few people who have been arrested is because we arrested them for a criminal offense and then linked it. But if you already charged them for a major criminal offense, then the gang activity is just by the way. So therein lies the problem. The law is so weak to allow the police to target someone to be a gang member. You virtually have to have somebody say, I am a gang member, for that person to be charged to be a gang member. So the anti-gang legislation is a waste of time. Stop blaming the police for not being able to charge people. But in the meantime, we have intelligence to know they're in gangs and we know what they are doing. And with that, it means that we know, and again, intelligence might show these are the individuals who are involved in the 43 assassination plots on myself. We knew several of them. Some of them were charged, some of them were neutralized, some of them backed off and migrated. But the fact is, I didn't go and press the panic button and call for an SOE or to shut down Independence Parade. If it is that this matter is much bigger than this, and again, as I said, I do not know. And that is why it is important that the law enforcement heads have said nothing. If it is that based on intelligence from the Defense Force Intelligence, the SSA, the SIU, and the Special Branch of the Police, I would have expected and recommended the Chief of Defense Staff, the Director of the SSA, and the Commissioner of Police to have done a press conference by now. If something so drastic and so serious that an independence parade has to be shut down, why are you allowing the government to take front and trying to defend and justify why they are doing it when you are the ones gave them the recommendation? You should come forward and say, we are the ones who made the recommendation. We sent it to the government, and the government is thankfully adhering to our recommendation because we don't think we have the capability to secure the country on Independence Day. They have stayed silent, and that silence is deafening because it is causing the public to second guess that this is really not a security matter. This is because you just don't like independence parades, and that may not be the case. So the government is suffering because of the leaders who are getting big money. They need to step up and do what is required.
Right, and in a stark contradiction, we hear that the UNC will be continuing with their usual meetings. We are seeing these same politicians going out and being a part of these political meetings, but not being able to participate in the major parades because of this threat. Do you see those two things being a conflict?
It would in the eyes of the average citizen, which is my point, because people will say, okay, so the 26 ministers in government cannot be secured in an independence parade where 10,000 law enforcement officers are armed to the teeth. But you could go on a Monday night forum where there'll be 4 special branch officers to guard you. And that is how it will be perceived to the average person. And that is happening because of the absence of the law enforcement heads sitting. They're supposed to come out and say, we want to shut down the independence parade because we have a specific intelligence report on that day of that specific nature that is going to cause a situation of a clear and present danger to the country. Because it's not just Monday night forum. 2 weeks later, just a couple miles from the Savannah, there's something called the National Stadium, and 25,000 people will be going to see Trinidad and Tobago play Curacao. Is it that we're going to be concerned and say we're going to shut down the game as well? So we have to be very careful. And these type of things affects not just us locally, but internationally and regionally as well. It will affect trade, it will affect the economy, it will affect tourism. How would anybody say, well, listen, why would I go there? Why would I invest there? Because you can't even have a parade. You're afraid that terrorists or whatever might cause it. The law enforcement heads have to come forward and say, this is a specific situation. It is isolated, but it's only for this day. Life will go on as normal. Say something, do something. You can't just be hiding behind closed doors and causing the government now to be taken front. Minister Dave Tanku had to try to explain why would the PNM want to have everybody centered in one area. That happens all over the world. So Minister Tanku is now trying to be a law enforcement expert to justify. He shouldn't have to do that. Where's the commissioner, the chief of defense staff, the director of the SSA? They need to step out and say, we made the recommendation, but it's only for this day because we know there's a plan to infiltrate Point Lisas and the energy sector or other parts of Tobago because all of the law enforcement agencies will be neutralized in one area. Or they could state that there's a sniper rifle was brought in and having sniper fire in the Queen's Park Savannah, it is quite possible. Or an improvised explosive device, and we're not sure where it will be placed. And it could be placed anywhere because we have all of Arapita Avenue where the parade is taking place. But after that, we are good. We are in control. Say something. If you don't say something, it will have people believe. So you could shut down Independence Parade, but you could have World Cup football, you could have Monday Night Forum, and therein lies the problem. The absence of the law enforcement experts who hold positions of authority not saying anything, and it is causing that absence of communication by the experts to cause speculation, maybe wrongfully so.
Right, and even as we wrap up the discussion this morning, are you in agreement with this decision or this position that the country is taking as it pertains to, deciding not to go forward with this year's parade and instead having a national day of prayer and worship?
Well, again, as I said, had I been commissioner of police, it would not have gone that way because mine is one to stand firm and take the fight to the criminals, not have the criminals, because that is what terrorism is as well. Terrorism is not just to actual press the button, but to cause the panic and fear and this instability in a place. Shutting down events and so forth means that the terrorists or the criminals have won. So, and I do not lose. Having said that, I'm not foolish just to go in there, in charge of the light brigade. So if it is that I was commissioner of police and I'm aware of what the threat is, I would have immediately neutralized the threat or put everything in place to prevent the threat from taking place. So I probably would not have made the recommendation to shut down Independence Parade. I would definitely would not have caused a state of emergency, because a state of emergency, the police could do the exact things that they can do without a state of emergency, other than arresting people indefinitely and breaking into houses without a warrant. So what is the difference? You just have to intensify your operations. So that is my take on it. However, if there's more information that I and the public we are not aware of that is so damning and serious that warrants the protection and the safety of the government ministers and the citizens and so forth, as I said, nothing trumps security, nothing trumps safety and security. And if it is so much that the experts in law enforcement are saying we don't think we can handle it, well, then it is the right thing to do. But again, for that to happen, there must be communication by these heads to say, we made the recommendation to the government, but after independence, there's nothing to fear. You can go to football, you can go to Monday Night Forum, you could go on bars and Arpita Avenue, Arima, wherever, you're safe.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank you so much for your time this morning and bringing us these insights. Guys, we're going to take a quick break right here, and we'll be back right after this. See you soon.